Hello there, welcome back to What the Flick. I'm Christy, and that's Ben, and we have some video on demand recommendations for you. Movies you can stream, or you can rent, or you can physically go down to your local Blockbuster and show them your little blue and yellow card. I think there's like one Blockbuster left in the entire country at this point.
I didn't think there were any.
I think there's like one, and maybe it's in Oregon. So if you're in Oregon and want to go browse through the VHS bins, go do it. My first pick, I'm gonna have a couple of picks for you guys today. My first pick is a film we reviewed here a few months back called Revenge. It is a rape revenge thriller. Do not let that description put you off at all, because it is great and it is thrilling and it totally upends the conventions of this genre, which might seem icky and might seem hard to watch. It is written and directed by a French filmmaker named Coralie Fargeat, and it is thrillingly assured and beautifully stylish and turns on its head what this kind of movie is usually about. Matilda Lutz stars as this beautiful and very sexy and very alluring blonde who goes away for the weekend with her hunky and wealthy and very married boyfriend. They go to this beautiful, really cool, stylish house in the middle of nowhere, and his hunting buddies show up a little early and they rape her. And the rest of the film is about how she gets her revenge on these people. And one thing I love about it is the way that Coralie Fargeat takes that male gaze of a woman who looks like this and how she ordinarily would be shot and leered at in a film like this, and turns it into a celebration of her as a warrior who reinvents herself, whose physical transformation takes place over the course of the film, and it's thrilling to watch. And the landscape, which is a huge part of the feel of this film, changes as the film goes on. And it's stylish, it's intense. The sound design is really cool. Things like drops of blood hitting the dirt in the baking heat of the desert, and it sounds like gunfire. It's a really exciting movie, and I know that on paper it sounds like something that you do not want to see. Trust me, this is a movie that you want to see. It might be on my top 10 list at the end of the year, actually. It's been available for streaming for a while. It is now going to be available also on disc if you prefer to consume films that way. So Revenge is one of my picks. Ben, what is yours?
My pick you can find on Filmstruck.
Okay.
The only streaming home for the movies from Hollywood's golden age, but you can also find just the entire Criterion collection and a whole bunch of really interesting films, including from 1991. By the way, it's only $9.99 a month. It's like, and it is the great. I mean, the movies on Filmstruck are. I get it. I work there, but it's unbelievable. Every time I go on there, you're like, I can't believe for $9.99 you were giving me all of these movies.
It's like they're paying you.
It is like they're paying me. It is as if they're paying me. But man, is it great. And it's just suffering from people not knowing what it is. And as soon as they find out what it is, it's impossible not to love. From 1991, the director's cut of JFK, which adds 16 minutes to the movie, because I know my complaint about JFK. Not quite long enough.
At 3 hours and 9 minutes, the original
And I have gone
film.
back and forth on JFK because, of course, it was such an effective film and so effectively seared into my memory that it is hard for me to remember what things are true and what things are sort of conspiracy theories, that some of which might be true, some of which are impossible to prove. Like, I'll find myself thinking, well, how did the European papers know to identify Oswald? But that probably, they didn't. But separate the fact that I think that there was a conspiracy to kill the President of the United States, and that I find it very difficult to believe that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. And there are many very serious people who believe that. I don't have I don't know what that was, how that manifested itself, and it didn't manifest itself in this way. It is not, Oliver Stone's version is almost certainly not true. That said, it makes you rethink this incredibly tumultuous time, and this is the beginning of it. Remember, these weren't, we just say it now, the 60s, and we had the assassinations of JFK and Bobby Kennedy and Martin Luther King in between them, Malcolm X. And they weren't assassinations, they were murders. They were public murders of important people. And that is shocking to the conscience of a nation. And this is an amazingly compelling story about that. I think it is Oliver Stone's best work, along with Platoon. and it's just worth seeing. And you must separate yourself from believing you are being told a accurate historical version of what happened. But you can come out of it and think, man, that story is crazy. And the solution we were fed by a government that I got out of the Warren Commission that was very eager to clearly tell us, nope, this is a guy, he didn't like Kennedy and he shot him and the bullet did an amazing thing, but sometimes that happens. So I think it is worth seeing for everybody to rethink that, reevaluate, reassess that time, but also just as a movie, the way it's put together, it is consistently gripping despite the 3.5 hours that you're gonna be watching it.
So what do they add? It already was 3 hours and 9 minutes long. What's in the extra 16 minutes?
Just stuff that, nothing, is what I understand is nothing tremendously that like, oh, this big shocker where no scene where Lyndon Johnson says, let's kill the president and then I'll be president, right? But stuff that Kennedy, that he just left out in the interest of moving the movie along, and that somehow when you're sitting at home and it's less, there's less of a cause and less of a panic to get a movie to a certain time. So stuff holds together a little bit better. It's a little, narratively it works a little bit better. But I thought it worked great in the first place, except for the fact that it confused me about what was true and what wasn't.
But think about it, it came out in 1991 and all these years later, you can say back and to the left and everyone will know
that's right.
what you're talking about. So as daunting as a film of this enormity and importance it might seem, it's still a pop culture phenomenon.
Spawned one of the great Seinfeld episodes, Back and to the Left.
Oh, very good.
The Keith Hernandez spitting episode.
It all goes back to baseball around here eventually. So thank you for that. My second pick, this actually was going to be Matt's pick. Matt couldn't join us today, but I fully support and endorse, and I'm going to steal his pick and share it with you, and that is The Rider. This is a movie that we talked about a few months ago when it came out theatrically. And this might end up being one of the best movies of the year as well. It is from writer-director Chloe Zhao. It is her second film. It is about a guy named Brady who was a rodeo superstar. And a horrific accident took place involving a horse that left him with this giant scar over his head and the inability to not ride ever again or not be the rodeo champion that he was destined to be. He lives on an Indian reservation where he is constantly asked when's he gonna get back on the horse. He's trying to figure out a way to reinvent himself amid this scrutiny, amid his own internal confusion of just functioning day to day with his brain injury. And what's fascinating is that these are all people playing versions of themselves in the place where they live. And Chloe Zhao depicts it with such intimacy, but also on this really epic scale. So if you can see it on a really giant television, that would be pretty awesome, I think, because it's just beautifully shot. And in ways that are gentle, but also awe-inspiring, like the vistas and the sunsets, and just is a really rich sense of place here. And you have the pleasure of watching somebody do what he does really, really well. He's sort of this horse whisperer and helps break horses for other people. And just watching just the day in and day out process of somebody who really excels and thrives at doing something well is kind of a joy despite the inherent heartache in his own situation. So it's beautifully shot, beautifully acted. Quite often when you have real people, playing versions of themselves, it can be a little stiff and a little awkward, but it always feels very truthful. So our picks for this week are Revenge and The Rider and the director's cut of JFK. Thank you for sticking around with us today.